Hello, I'm Mack Blann. I am Mack & Company Realtors. If you're watching this video, you have a home you're wanting to sell. By the end of it, I think you'll see that I am well qualified to get your home sold. I believe you can see from my resume I have a vast amount of experience selling homes like yours. I would like to point out the part about me being a good money manager. Most real estate agents are surviving from one commission check to the next, like a couple of friends of mine, both big hitters, but both poor money managers. One has to have approximately $17,000 a month to pay his bills, and the other one has to have approximately $14,000. They're both nice guys, but they need the commission so badly they cannot put your interest ahead of their need for the money. I have saved my money over the years. Am I highly motivated to get your home sold? Yes. But I'm not so desperate for the money that I can't put your interest ahead of my own. You can see I have an extensive marketing plan. After we have gone over it, I believe you will be convinced that I'm the right man for the job of selling your house. I spend 2 to 3 hours a day making calls looking for business. This gives me access to buyers and sellers that other agents don't have. I can assure you no other agent is doing this. I have shown many agents over the years on how to do it and what to say, and I've never seen any of them last longer than 2 weeks. It's hard work. I place your listing in the multi-listing service with complete and correct information. The MLS is where we realtors go to find each other's listings so we can show them. I know the complete and correct information sounds simple, but I have sold many houses where the previous agent did not have an MLS correctly. For example, I sold one over here in Hunter's Hill that had been on the market for 2 years. I sold it in 10 days. When the owner called me and asked me to go see why the property hadn't sold, I pulled it up in MLS and saw immediately what was wrong with it. The previous agent had it in MLS as a condo, and it was a patio home. So any buyer looking for a patio home never saw it, and those looking for a condo didn't buy it. I put in the MLS properly as a patio home, and it sold. Learning from other people's mistakes, if no one shows my listing in the first week, I pull it up in the multi-listing service to be sure I didn't do something stupid. I place your listing on my web page. 95% of the people who buy a house in today's world start their search on the internet, so it's important we have a good web presence. I mail out 1,150 flyers a month directing people to my website where they can see all my listings. These are the people I've picked up over the years cold calling but hadn't moved yet. Lots of them refer their friends and relatives to me when they get ready to buy. I place your listing on the internet. Remember, 95% of the people who buy a house start their search on the internet. There are 73 websites that have permission to place my listings on their websites, like Realtor.com, the most updated one, Zillow, Trillo, HomeFinders.com, all the major franchises like Remax, Caldwell Banker, Citrus 21, etc. I do a photo gallery for the multi-listing service and the internet. Of course, for more photos than displayed here, up to 40. Buyers who search the internet for a home tell me if there's not a good photo gallery, they just pass the house by. I pay out 3% of the sales price if sold by another agent. I want the other realtors to be more interesting in selling my listings than my competitors. An agent can make more money selling my listing than selling their own company listing. When we agreed to put the listings on the MLS, it would agree that we would give the selling company at least 40% of the commission. Nowadays, there are agents listing houses at different brokerage fees. At 7%, the payout is 2.8%. The 6%ers usually pay 2.4%. The 5%ers pay either 2.2 or 2%. Many of us don't want to show these because we're not willing to take a 30% pay cut to sell someone else's listing. Well, I pay out 3% because I want to draw agents to my listings rather than run them off. I have agents tell me that they watch my listings because they know they can make the 3%. If you were a realtor, which house would you want to sell? I have a 24/7 call capture program. This is the best marketing tool I've seen in my 37 years selling real estate. Buyers can call 24 hours a day and get a recorded message telling them all about your home in much more detail than I ever could in a written ad. Buyers are 300 to 400% more likely to call my recorded ad than to call me as a realtor. People don't like salespeople. They're afraid we're going to sell them something. However, when they call my ad, the system sends me a text message with their phone number and what house they called on. I can now follow up and see if it's the right house for them. If not, then I may have another one that's listed or will work. The person that buys your house may call on another home. Only 5% of the time when a buyer calls on a house do they buy the house they call on. So as a realtor, I have to create as many buyer calls as possible and then match them to my listings. I place a box on the sign with flyers with just enough information to intrigue the buyer. If you will notice, my flyers are not like other agents where they give them all the information, therefore the buyer has no reason to call. However, my flyers are missing two pieces of information: the square footage and the price. What do the buyers want to know more than anything else? The square footage and the price. They can get that, they just have to call my 24/7 line. Then, as you know, I have their phone number. I personally handle all the calls that come in from potential buyers. This makes sense because I know more about your home and I have more incentive to sell it than a floor duty agent. We'll come back to floor duty in just a moment. Plus, I'm a better salesman than 95% of the people in the business. When a buyer calls on your home, they're not calling to buy it, but rather to eliminate it for this massive information they have gotten off various sites on the internet. A typical call goes something like this: I'm calling this house you have at ABC Avenue. I was wanting to know how big it is, how many bedrooms does it have, how many baths, and what are they asking for it. If I just answer all their questions, say it's approximately 1,500 feet, it has 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and the seller's asking $150,000, the next thing I hear is "thank you very much," and they hang the phone up. I have now just wasted that call. The proper way to handle the call is when they ask how big the house is, I ask them, well, how big a house do you need? How many bedrooms does it have? Well, how many bedrooms are you looking for? Because if I ask them a question, every time they ask me a question, I can draw them into a conversation. I can establish a little rapport with them. Now I can get their name, their phone number, and match them up to a listing that works for them. Remember, only about 5% of the time when a person calls on a home do they buy that home. Your buyer will probably call another house and I can match them to yours. Now let's go back to floor duty. This is the real estate business in a nutshell. If you look at a typical office, it looks something like this. They will have 5 or 6 top hitters. These are the agents I used to recruit when I owned Remax. What I found was that in Little Rock, out of 1,100 agents, there were only 75 that could work at the Remax. I didn't recruit anyone that did less than $2 million a year in sales because the numbers wouldn't work for them or me. North of the river, there are only 40 out of 900 agents. I can explain this further if you want when we get together. Then the typical office will have 10 to 12 average agents that sell 4 to 6 houses a year, and then they'll have 10 or 12 low producers that sell only 2 to 3 houses a year. Well, they do this system called floor duty, where if there's 30 agents in an office, each agent spends 1/2 a day every 15 days taking the phone calls that come in on their listings. The theory is that we always have an agent on duty to handle the calls coming in our houses. The fallacy with this system is that 90% of the time, the people who are selling 10% of the products are taking the calls, and they just answer the questions and waste the call. When I went to Remax along with 2 of my friends from Block Realty, we got the broker to agree to let us handle all of our own calls. At that time, Block was selling 51% of their own listings in-house and 49% through the multi-listing service. When we started taking our own calls, we started selling 68% of our own listings because we knew the proper way to handle the phone. I contact other realtors with homes in the same price range as your home. It gives me a chance to tell them about your house and remind them they can make 3% selling your house. And I always ask them if they get a buyer to please come show your house. When an agent from another real estate company wants to show your home, my showing service will call you to set up the appointment and then send me an email so I know who is showing your house and when. If someone shows up at your home without having received a call from the centralized showing service, do not let them in. Have them call centralized showing service so I'll have a record of who has been there. That way I can follow up on the showing and give you feedback. After the agent has shown your house, centralized showing service will send them an email for feedback. Only about 1 out of 10 will fill this out, so I have to call the other 9. I do the follow-up for 2 reasons. I want to know if their buyer has interest in your house and how your house compares to other homes on the market in the same price range. If they didn't like your house, I ask why. For example, if I keep hearing that they didn't like the carpet, then we know what our problem is. If I don't follow up, and most agents don't, then we don't know what's going on and what it's going to take to get the house sold. The second reason I follow up is buyers sometimes are interested in the house, and I can answer any questions that the agent may have about your house. At times I will find that their buyer is interested, but their buyer has a problem that's keeping them from moving forward. For example, I had a house in Pleasant Valley Estates for sale. It had been on the market for 6 months with Janet Jones prior to listing with me. And when I called the agent Mars, she told me her buyers loved the home but had a condo across the street in Windsor Valley they hadn't been able to sell. I asked her if they would consider renting it and buying my listing. Her response was, "Well, Mac, the payment's $900 a month on that thing." I said, "Well, Marge, isn't that condo about 2,300 feet?" She said it was. I said, "Well, they could probably get $1,200-1,300 a month." I said, "If they could rent it, would they move forward?" She said she didn't know, so I asked her to set an appointment for me to meet with her buyers. When I got there, I asked them if they would rent their condo. They said they would if they could get $1,200 to $1,300 a month. They rented it the first weekend and bought my listing. If I hadn't followed up on that deal, it would never have happened. What I'm saying is, at times I can help the other agents solve their buyers' problems and get my listing sold. I pre-qualify your buyers before you enter into a contract with them. Now, you would think that all agents would qualify their buyers before they start dragging them around. Not so, because most of the agents don't know how. This is how poor a job some of the agents do. I had a house on Allwood, North Little Rock. When I called the agent for follow-up, he said he was writing an offer as we spoke. I asked him about his buyer, said she'd already been in for a loan application. I asked him to please include the loan officer's name and phone number when he sent me the offer, which he didn't. The law says I must present the offer, so I took it to my sellers, and they wanted to take it because it was very close to what I told them to expect. I said I did too, but I didn't have enough information on the buyer, so we countered the offer, subject to me getting satisfactory information on the buyer's ability to attain financing within 3 days. The other agent now had to give me the loan officer's name and phone number, and when I called him, he asked me what type of loan was on the contract. I told him she wanted to go FHA. This is an exact quote. He said, "Mac, I told the buyer and the agent last week she could not qualify for an FHA loan, that she would have to put at least 15% down." When I told the buyer's agent this, he said that wouldn't be a problem. I said, "Well, good, bring it to me in earnest money and we'll do a deal." Well, of course he didn't, and 2 weeks later I sold the house to a qualified buyer, which I couldn't have done if I had tied the house up. To see how I qualify a buyer, please read the slides. I represent you during contract negotiations. If another agent sells the house through the multi-listing service, that agent will be representing the buyer. What is their job? Get the buyer the best deal. My job? Get you the best deal. Good news. The average agent only sells 4 or 5 houses a year, and they're not any better at negotiating contracts than they are finding the business. Sometimes it's really just this simple. When I get the offer, I look at it, and then I tell the other agent that I appreciate the offer, but it will not buy the house, and ask if their buyers will come up. A lot of them don't understand representation, will respond, "Oh, they really love the house, they'll come up." If the agent knows better, they'll say, "No, Mac, you know I can't tell you that." And I always laugh and say, "Yeah, I know, but thought I'd ask. But tell me about your buyers. Are they here locally or from out of town?" They may respond that they're from out of town. "We've been looking all week." Well, have they seen any other homes they're interested in? "No, this is the only one they like." Well, what does that tell us? Now, if the buyer is here locally, I ask, have they seen any other homes they like? An agent may tell me, "Yeah, they have made an offer on a couple of other houses and didn't get them worked out." Well, that tells us they may not be very negotiable, and if it's pretty close to what you want, you may want to accept it. My job is not to tell you what to do, but to get you enough information that you can make an informed decision. Once we work the deal out, then we're going to get to the little home inspection stage. And when we get to home inspector, now there's certain home inspectors we won't deal with. We'll put in the contract that they're not to come over there. I'll have my people look at the repairs to see if they're legitimate, and then we'll negotiate them. Remember, I am a home builder. After we worked out an offer, I stay on top of the buyer's loan officer to be sure we get closed on time. I'll call them once a week to see if they're on track for the closing. What we don't want to happen is have the closing delayed and the interest rate change and kill our deal. I want to be sure they get funds to the title company on time. On a few occasions, I've had to go over their heads. Had one last year where I had to call the president of the bank to get funded on time. I'll do everything humanly possible to get it closed. I'm going to handle the closing. I will stay in close contact with the title company to be sure they stay on schedule. When I bring you an offer, I will figure you a net sheet so you'll know how much money you're going to clear at the closing. Before you ever get to closing, I have the title company send me the HUD one, and I'll make sure there are no mistakes on it, and it jives with the numbers you were given at the time you accepted the offer. If you like my marketing plan, please give me a call, and I'll come over and see what it's going to take to get your house sold. Thank you. Mack Blann, 225-1355. I repeat, 501-225-1355. I have included 3 unsolicited testimonials for your viewing. Yes, this is an unsolicited testimonial from some nice people I sold their house for in North Little Rock. This home had been on the market for 18 months with Janet Jones. They couldn't sell it. I sold it in about 30 days. Millie had her house on the market with 3 different realtors before I showed up. She'd given up any hope of ever getting it sold. I think it took me about 60 days to sell this one. Thank you for taking time to watch this presentation. Give me a call and I'll come over and we'll get your house sold. Mack at 225-1355. Thank you.